Most people will go through tonight, June 1st, 2026, without realizing what has just passed before them. Something rare happened in the sky over the last few hours, and most simply didn't notice. The second full moon within the same period, what they call a blue moon, appeared like an uninvited guest. It wasn't scheduled in the normal rhythm. It emerged as an exception, a surplus, an extra interval that the universe decided to insert right at the closing of May and the opening of June. And that is exactly why this night matters. Because there are specific actions you can take right now, in these very next hours, capable of aligning with the rare energy of this event. And the first of them can completely change the way you see everything that happened in the month that just ended. It is no exaggeration to say that few energetic events of the year carry as much symbolic weight as this night. The blue moon is not just an astronomical spectacle, it is a marker. One of those moments when the sky stops following the calendar and reminds us that there is a greater rhythm behind all things. Most people use the full moon to think about what they want. But the blue moon asks a completely different question. It doesn't ask what you want. It asks what happened that you didn't see coming. And this single shift in questioning already reorganizes everything internally. Because what builds your next chapter is rarely what you planned. It is almost always what interrupted your plan. And those who understand this go through the following months with a clarity that no one around them can copy. That is exactly what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. I will give you 8 simple rituals, possible to be done tonight, at home, without any complicated tools, without any special items, without needing anything other than yourself and your attention. Each of them was designed to extract the maximum from a night that only repeats every 2 or 3 years. Along the way, I will share with you something important about money and abundance, something I have been noticing in those who truly cross the border of scarcity. And at the end, I will give you the most underrated ritual of all, the one that almost no one mentions, but that silently changes the way you go through the next 60 days. But before all of that, you need to understand why this night is different from the others, and for that I need to pull you back to the beginning of May. Think about who you were on the 1st of May. Not what you were doing, but how you were thinking. What were you tolerating? What were you chasing? What were you trying to convince yourself of? Because I guarantee you something is different now. Perhaps a belief has silently lost its hold on you. Perhaps a situation that once consumed all your attention no longer seems so urgent. Perhaps a boundary you could never set has firmed up without you noticing. Perhaps a desire that seemed optional has turned into something you can no longer ignore. The most curious thing about true transformations is that they rarely announce themselves. Most people expect change to arrive with fireworks and certainty. In practice, it arrives so silently that you only notice it when you are already on the other side of it. The blue moon is exactly that. It doesn't cause the change, it reveals the change that was already happening beneath the surface. That is why it appears as an exception, as a second full moon within the same month, as if the calendar needed an extra window to show you what has already become true. There is a detail that almost no spiritual channel mentions, and it is important. The word blue in this context has nothing to do with the color of the moon. It has to do with something rare, something that escapes the standard. The old English expression once in a blue moon literally means once in a lifetime. And think about that for a second. Everything you are feeling right now, all this mixture of fatigue, hope, haste, doubt, and desire for a turnaround, is happening within a window that only opens again in a few years. Whoever misses this night doesn't just miss any night. They miss a portal. And now, with this understanding, we enter the first ritual. The first ritual of this night is called the inventory of the unexpected. Take a notebook, a piece of paper, or even the notes on your phone. Look at the entire month of May and ask yourself a single question. What appeared uninvited? Perhaps it was an opportunity you didn't expect. A conversation that changed a perception of yours. A delay that forced you in a different direction. Perhaps something didn't go as you wanted, but in the end, it ended up revealing something you needed to see. Most people ignore these moments because they weren't part of the plan. But the blue moon is literally the moon of the unplanned. It is the extra, the unexpected, the one that appears when the normal pattern is interrupted. And here is the fascinating detail. Often the most important clues about where your life is going do not come from what you planned. They come from what interrupted your plan, Write down at least 3 unexpected things that happened in May. Don't filter, don't judge, just record. This simple gesture already opens a layer of consciousness that you wouldn't access any other way. And here I need to pause with you for a moment, because as you review your month, you might notice something uncomfortable. A lot has happened. Opportunities arose. You felt energy to change. But when you looked at the bank account, the material reality still hasn't kept up. Money remained tight. Bills kept arriving before the deposit, and you started to wonder if all this energy will actually turn into something concrete, palpable, in cash, in balance, in freedom. This is not a coincidence. This is a matrix. There is an invisible structure, a silent pattern that defines who attracts wealth and who remains sustaining scarcity for decades, even while working double, even having talent, even receiving signs. This pattern I call the lucky streak. And I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm not talking about naive visualization. I'm not talking about repeating affirmations in the mirror. I'm talking about the way your internal system organizes decision, merit, and perception of value. 3 gears that together decide if money finds an open path to you, or if it bumps into gates that you yourself locked without noticing. The blue moon has a unique characteristic. It amplifies what is already in motion within you. If your matrix is aligned with abundance, it accelerates. If your matrix is still trapped in scarcity, disguised as prudence, it exposes. And most people, unfortunately, are in the second group without realizing it. They continue to call common sense what is, deep down, fear well-dressed. They continue to call patience what is, deep down, a giving up that hasn't yet admitted its own name. The lucky streak is the material I gathered exactly to unlock this point. It is the practical path that takes everything that this night is revealing within you and directs it toward a completely different financial reality. It's not magic, it's reorganization. It's what changes when you stop apologizing for wanting more, stop self-sabotaging every time a door opens, and start becoming the type of person that money recognizes and follows. Those who enter the lucky streak in this specific window, aligned with the blue moon, find an acceleration that would normally take months. The link is in the description of this video, also pinned in the first comment. If you feel that this is your night to turn things around, it is there, waiting for you to take the step. Now back to the night and back to the rituals. The second ritual requires a bit more courage than the first. I call it the slightly irrational action. There is something you have been almost doing for weeks. Almost starting that project, almost having that conversation, almost sending that message, almost making that decision. The word almost has delayed more dreams than failure ever could. And what is interesting is that most people believe their comfort zone is protecting them, but in truth, it is only preserving a version of life that you have already outgrown. The blue moon carries the energy of the unexpected, and this energy asks something of you. It asks you to become slightly irrational about what you want, not reckless, not impulsive, just willing to stop negotiating against yourself every time an opportunity appears. The life you desire usually begins one decision beyond the life you are comfortable with. Tonight, identify the action that creates immediate resistance in your mind, not the impossible thing, not the distant fantasy, the real achievable thing that makes you slightly nervous every time you think about it. That is the clue. And the ritual is simple. Take a micro-decision about it today. It could be sending the message, scheduling the appointment, opening the registration, writing the first paragraph. Something small enough for you to do today, but big enough to push the gate. The third ritual is the receipt of transformation. This is one of my favorites because it flips everything. Instead of asking what you want to become, you will ask what you have already become. Because, like it or not, this month left a mark on you, and the blue moon is in fact handing you the receipt. Take the notebook again and write on a separate sheet 3 things that changed within you throughout May. It could be a way of reacting, a way of speaking, a decision you wouldn't have made a month ago. It could be an anger that cooled down. It could be a forgiveness that appeared on its own. It could be a certainty you didn't know you had. The act of writing this gives you back the feeling of progress, and progress, even if silent, is fuel for the next chapter. Here enters an important detail. People who can recognize their own growth become difficult to manipulate. You stop falling for the same conversations. You stop accepting the same crumbs. You stop waiting for the approval of the same people. And this by itself already changes the way the world treats you. There are those who go a whole life without realizing they have changed, and therefore continue repeating old patterns as if they were still necessary. You will not make that mistake today. The fourth ritual is what I call landing. It may seem simple, but it is precisely in simple acts that the most underrated part of energetic work lies. As the night progresses, something curious starts to happen within most people. During the day, there is always noise, tasks, conversations, distractions, notifications, responsibilities, alerts. Your attention is pulled in 1,000 directions. But when the night gets quiet, your consciousness gains space to notice things it was too busy to notice before. That is why many people feel the blue moon with more intensity just before sleeping. It is not that the energy gets stronger. It is that everything else gets quieter. If you spent the last few hours reflecting, thinking, making decisions, processing everything you saw up to here, there is a high chance your mind will keep spinning long after your body is already ready to rest. Many people mistake this for insomnia. They think there is something wrong because they can't switch off, but most of the time, the problem is not that you can't sleep. The problem is that you haven't landed yet. You spent the whole night in your thoughts, and your body is waiting for you to return. Before sleeping today, do this little ritual. Sit somewhere quiet. Put both feet on the floor. Place one hand on your chest and the other on your belly. Breathe slowly, deliberately, 3 times. Feel the floor beneath you. Feel your breathing slowing down. Feel your attention returning to your body. Because clarity is only useful if you can take it with you. What you discover inside doesn't change anything if there is nowhere for it to land. This is the most ignored detail of every special night. Insight without a body evaporates. You wake up the next day with the feeling that something important passed, but you can no longer remember exactly what. That was why so many people went through New Year's turnings, life decisions, landmark moments, and 2 weeks later were already back in exactly the same pattern as before. It wasn't a lack of revelation. It was a lack of landing. It was the rush to move to the next stimulus before the previous one could anchor itself. The blue moon won't return anytime soon. Treat this window as what it is, a true chance to fix something within you. The 3 slow breaths, with one hand on your chest and the other on your belly, are not pretty symbolism. They are the physical gesture of telling yourself, I am here, I receive, I keep this, Eve. The 5th ritual is perhaps the most misunderstood of all, because it seems too simple to be powerful. But I want you to actually eat well tonight. Not for symbolism, not for an old rule, but because, after everything we have talked about so far, it is important to remember that your body lived this month too. Many spiritual people by chance make the mistake of treating growth as something that only happens in the mind. They spend hours reflecting, taking notes, analyzing, looking for meaning, and forget that they are living this experience through a physical body. Think about it. Your body carried you through every challenge, every decision, every stressful moment, every victory, every stumble, every unexpected restart that May handed you. It was present in everything. And yet, when a significant night like this arrives, many people go through it too quickly. They order something on an app, eat while looking at their phone, barely feel the flavor, and move on to the next distraction. This night deserves a little more attention than that. Sit down with something you really like. It doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It just needs to be intentional. Eat slowly. Feel the flavor, be in fact present, because what you are celebrating is not the blue moon itself. You are celebrating the fact that you made it through another month. And that deserves to be recognized with kindness, with calm, and with some real flavor in your mouth. The 6th ritual is so obvious that many people forget it. Go outside and look at the moon. I know it seems almost ridiculous because it is so simple, but think about how strange it is that millions of people will talk about the blue moon, post about it, read about it, watch videos about it, and never spend even 2 minutes standing under it. In some regions of America, depending on the time you are watching this video, the blue moon has already passed its highest point. But the moon that is in the sky is still carrying this energy. The reflection, the closing, the transition portal between May and June, all of this remains active until the sun rises again. And none of this requires a perfect window of observation. It only requires your attention. Something happens within us when we go out to the street at night and place ourselves under a huge moon hanging over the world. It is difficult to explain until you experience it. The air feels different. The perspective shifts. Problems that seemed giant within four walls become strangely smaller. Thoughts that were racing in your head start to organize themselves on their own. Maybe it is because, finally, you are out of the noise. Maybe it is because you remember that there is a giant world beyond your immediate worries. Whatever the reason, the experience is real. Joe's screen replaces the feeling of standing under something that has been observing humanity for thousands of years. Do this tonight. Go out, even if it is for 2 minutes. Leave the phone inside. Look up. A few years from now, you probably won't remember which video you were watching. You won't remember which app was open. But you might remember the night you stood under a rare moon, reflected on how much you had advanced, and realized that the next chapter of your life was already beginning. The seventh ritual is the most challenging because it requires honesty. I call it closing what was left open. There is a great confusion about the meaning of a blue moon. Many people think it represents a new beginning, but that is not what makes this moon so powerful. This is not the opening of a new chapter. This is the hour when the current chapter finally demands a closing. Think about everything that happened throughout May. The ideas you kept revisiting, the decisions you almost made, the projects you started but never fully embraced, the conversations you kept telling yourself you would have later. Month after month, people carry these unfinished things forward, thinking they will resolve them later. But the blue moon has a strange way of exposing what was left hanging right in front of you. And what makes this moon unique is that it appears as an extra moon within the same month, almost as if May itself were asking for one last chance to finish something before the page turns. Today, before sleeping, write a single sentence. Just one. The sentence is, "What from May deserves to end today?" and answer with sincerity. It could be a relationship that no longer nourishes you. It could be a project that became a burden. It could be an excuse you have been repeating to yourself. It could be a version of you that no longer fits here. Closing is not just letting go. Closing is also making the decision to turn the page with yourself. Tell yourself out loud what is closing. It can be a whisper, but let it be said. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop carrying a question for which you already know the answer. The eighth and final ritual is the most underrated, and also the most delicate. I call it listening to the body. What I realized is that most people are very good at listening to their own thoughts, but surprisingly bad at listening to their own body. They spend hours trying to understand what something means, analyzing situation by situation, going over conversations, looking for signs, and completely ignore that the body is reacting to all of this in real time. And this is especially important on a night like this. The blue moon tends to bring to the surface what had been accumulating quietly beneath the surface, not just emotionally, not just mentally, but physically as well. The body has a way of storing experiences long after the conscious mind believes it has already moved on. That is why sometimes you tell yourself you are fine, but your body tells a completely different story. Perhaps throughout May you felt more tired than usual, even without a change in routine. Perhaps you noticed a constant tightness in your shoulders. Perhaps you had tension in your jaw, a headache appearing out of nowhere, strange sleep, energy going up and down. Most people try to explain this away quickly. They tell themselves they are tired, stressed, distracted, or simply getting older. But in some moments, the body is responding to something much deeper. Think about everything that happened this month, the decisions you had to make, the things that worried you, the situations that kept spinning in your head even when you wanted to switch off. Each of these experiences left a mark. The mind can pretend that something is not affecting it. The body most of the time cannot. That is why this night is such a revealing window. The end of a cycle is the moment when you finally gain enough distance to see what it was doing to you the entire time. Suddenly you realize that what you had been carrying without paying attention was draining much more energy than you imagined. You realize that a situation you kept minimizing was, in fact, exhausting you. You realize that an opportunity you passed by was also nourishing you, and you didn't even recognize it. The body listening ritual is simple. Before sleeping, do a scan. Feet, legs, hips, belly, chest, shoulders, neck, jaw, eyes. Place your hand on each region for a few seconds and ask, "What are you holding that I haven't noticed yet?" It is not necessary to interpret. It is necessary to listen. The body notices what the mind is still debating, and this, perhaps, is one of the most underrated truths of adult life. And here reaches the point that I really wanted you to take from this night. There are two people entering June tomorrow. The first enters unconscious. They didn't review the month. They didn't recognize what worked. They didn't identify what needs to change. They are basically carrying May forward without realizing it. The second enters June after having done the inventory of everything this month revealed. They looked at the surprises. They recognized the internal changes. They identified what deserves closing and what deserves more attention. They are no longer carrying May blindly because, in fact, they learned from it. Who do you think enters June with more strength? Not because the moon changed the circumstances by magic, but because consciousness changed the relationship with these circumstances. People don't grow just by experience. They grow by perceiving the experience. That is the real difference. And that is why this night, even if silent, even if apparently common to those scrolling through their feed, can be a milestone. The 8 rituals you just received exist to ensure that you cross this portal consciously, with your body present, with your mind clear, and with decisions finally made. They were not invented randomly. Each of them attacks a specific point that usually stalls ordinary people, even when everything seemed to indicate a turnaround. Recapping quickly so you don't forget. First, the inventory of the unexpected, where you write down what appeared uninvited in May. Second, the slightly irrational action, where you make a micro-decision today about what you have been putting off. Third, the receipt of transformation, where you write down 3 things that changed within you. Fourth, landing. 3 slow breaths before sleeping, with your body present. Fifth, the intentional meal, eating with attention, feeling present. Sixth, 2 minutes under the moon, no phone, no noise. Seventh, the closing, writing in 1 sentence what from May deserves to end today. Eighth, body listening, doing the scan before sleeping. All of this fits into less than an hour, and it is capable of internally reorganizing a set of thoughts you had been carrying for weeks. The blue moon does not require sacrifice. It requires presence. It doesn't require money. It doesn't require an altar. It doesn't require any purchase. It requires you fully, even if for 90 minutes. That is the price, and it is the cheapest price any energetic portal has ever charged anyone at any time. There is a giant difference between those who end this night, carrying the 8 rituals within them, and those who close the video, sleep, and wake up tomorrow, as if nothing had happened. The difference is not mystical, it is behavioral. One person will open June with a head empty of May's pending issues. The other will open June carrying the same weights disguised as a new routine. In 2 months, the distance between these 2 people becomes impossible to close. In 6 months, it becomes another life. And you decide tonight which of the 2 you transform into. And before this night ends, let me tell you one last thing. I know you watched until here because something in you is asking for a turnaround. It is not small, this feeling. It is real. You didn't arrive at this video by chance, and you didn't stay until this point by chance. There is something within you that always saw more than others can see, and perhaps you have spent your entire life apologizing for seeing so much, for feeling so much, for perceiving so much. Perhaps you learned to diminish yourself just to fit into environments too small for what you are. I have been preparing a journey exactly for those who reach this point. It is called the awakening point. It is the end of the lie you were taught to live. It is the door to the version of you that you always knew existed, but put off knowing. It is the point where you stop apologizing for what you see and start finally to use this as an advantage. If another year passes and you don't cross this border, it is your own identity that will get lost along the way. And you know this. Every time you silence what you feel to fit into a conversation, an environment, someone else's expectation, a piece of you fades. The awakening point was built to reverse exactly this process. Registrations for the next window are opening soon, and they are limited because the method was made to accompany person by person. not to become a huge list without real delivery. Press the subscribe button on this channel and turn on the bell now, because the official notice will come out here, and whoever misses it will have to wait again. I don't want you to be that person. Now, before closing, the comment of the day. Don't seek to be different. Seek to be authentic. So many people spend years trying to stand out, trying to be unique, trying to be different from the people around them. But authenticity works differently. When you are truly you, you don't need to force yourself to be different. It happens naturally because no one else has your experiences, your perspective, your history, your way of seeing the world. And that is enough. The goal is not to become someone uncommon. The goal is to become entirely yourself. Thank you to those who left this thought here, and thank you to you for sharing this night with me. The blue moon has already done its part. Now it is your turn to rest. Put your feet on the floor, breathe deeply 3 times, look up one last time, and enter June with the clarity of someone who, finally, listened to their own receipt. Good night, and welcome to what comes next.